you doing there, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Grinderslive that I wasn't aware of until I woke up this morning, but I've been researching Pound and Coffee all day long, so I am ready to roll here. We got a lot of basketball. Apparently one game's already in the works, and FanDuel had slates are just weird all over the place, but we're going to be bringing you research for every single game on the slate. I'm joined by the great Squirrel Patrol, my good friend here. How you doing there?
Good. Yeah, we were just saying it's been a year since we hung out in person. It was in San Diego for the FanDuel baseball final.
Yeah, it's always fun with this industry, like just meeting people at live finals, and then, yeah, you know what? We're friends afterwards.
Yeah.
At least I consider you a friend. I don't know how you feel about me. I don't want to know. I don't want to lower my self-confidence, but I'm assuming we're good friends since I was a +1. So,
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, we got a fun little slate on the board today. What are your initial thoughts on it? And guys, yeah, I know the FanDuel is already locked, but we're going to mostly do Draftkings. We will go over late swap questions. We can go through everything here, but it's just the day and age we live in with the bubble life. But what are your quick thoughts on the slate, John, before we dive right in?
So first big thought is just that I think a lot of the slate is dependent on one key injury. We got to see if Malcolm Brogdon's playing because they're playing the Wizards. Wizards are terrible defensively. Oladipo is doubtful, so I think he's very unlikely to play. And so, yeah, I mean, the Pacers could score a lot of points, but we don't know who's going to be playing for them. So that Brogdon injury is going to be the key to the whole slate, I think.
Yeah, it probably is. I mean, luckily that game, I believe, is the first game that's on the slate. Brogdon will play. Wow, that didn't last long.
No. I had a whole Aaron Holiday bit that's just out the window now.
Yeah, well, luckily we got it now beforehand. So now we can just give some nice expert advice here. Guys, if you haven't signed up for Rotogrinders Premium, you're missing out. We're going to be showcasing some of the tools, specifically Lineup HQ. You got everything you need here. Percent ownership, projections, minute projections, pricing. You can build. You can do whatever you want with Lineup HQ. So, guys, go ahead, sign up for RBG Premium, especially if you like what you see today. But let's get started here. Start off with the point guard position. So we have Conley projected as the top owned guy, followed shortly by Brogdon. Obviously, we went a little bit through Indiana's situation right now. They're missing a few guys that are big usage monsters. So Brogdon being in there, going up against the best possible matchup on the board pretty much for the entire year long. It's going to come in pretty chalky. We got SGA a little bit too underpriced on this slate here at $6K going up against Denver, definitely offering some upside. We got Mitchell. We got Morant, who I thought should be probably the top owned guy, but looks like it's a little bit different right now. Who are you targeting? Who are you fading? Who is just too heavily owned on this little 5-game slate here?
So I think Malcolm Brogdon suddenly becomes very attractive as a play because he's playing regular minutes. He's drastically underpriced to be facing the Wizards defense. Plus, I think the injury news could keep ownership down a little bit. He's probably got the Q tag next to his name across sites. His ownership is definitely going to be down on FanDuel, right? Like people probably don't even realize that's late swap now. So if you did do FanDuel lineups, you might want to consider putting Malcolm Brogdon in there. But again, check to see. We know the starting lineup, but there's maybe some commentary from the coach to follow regarding how many minutes he's going to be playing. So check that out. John Morant, I love that game. It's got the highest point total of the day, so I think Morant is definitely in play. And then SGA, they knocked his price down to be playing Denver, generally a slower paced team. But now Dennis Schroeder's out. So Shai Gilgeous-Alexander could be seeing some more usage, maybe some more minutes.
Yeah, I mean, well, plus Schroeder's out, but then we just got that like 5 minutes before the start of the show. But Schroeder's out, and also, yeah, Denver, like they're missing a lot of guards that are generally the better defenders here. So SGA, well, Denver's a tougher matchup for guards. Current lineup, not nearly as tough. So I'm kind of right there with you. I think SGA is drastically underpriced right now. But to me, sorry, go on.
Oh, sorry, I'll just throw one more in there. I just noticed the green dot. Ish Smith is starting today at 4 p.m., I believe. So
we just got that news slightly before. We're getting a lot of news, just the way that the bubble works right now. But like of these guys, you said it kind of sounds like Brogdon's your favorite. Like I just really like Morant. Look at the first 2 games. Close to 38 minutes average 48 points in each game. Like, the usage is going to be there. The matchup's absolutely fantastic. I know the Ball is a decent on-ball defender, and so is Drew Holiday. But he's 7.3K, so that's 1K over Brogdon. We don't really know what's going to go on with Brogdon. SGA has a worse matchup and is a bit cheaper, but Morant, he's playing all the minutes. Like, Memphis needs to win. They need to get in there. Like, all these other teams really doesn't matter too much. Indiana, OKC, Utah, all these teams don't have a ton to play for. They have a little bit to play for, but home field advantage is no longer a thing in the bubble because everyone's playing in the exact same area where that would have been a big benefit. The one thing they're trying not to do is get the 7th seed because they don't want to play the Clippers in the first round. So even that, though, I think Denver still has a chance, or someone still has a chance to get up into the 3rd seed. So the Clippers may end up as the 3rd seed and some other team will end up as the 2nd seed. So, like, need is a big thing right now in the bubble here. Like, am I crazy for having Morant as my top option, especially seeing that he's not projected to be the top owned guy on the slate?
No, you can absolutely sell me on John Morant. You can see my little blue dot for the conviction play in lineup HQ. It was him and Drew Holiday that I wrote up just because that game's got the highest point total on the night. You've got two teams that play a little fast. And I think with this bubble, teams do have different motivations. And I think, Memphis in particular wants to see what John Morant can do. And he was limited before the NBA shut down. He's been playing a little bit lower minutes, and now they seem to be unleashing him, playing him, 38, 40 minutes a night.
Yeah. Well, they got to get into that 8th seed. San Antonio's making a huge push for it. Everyone's just all over the place here. And this is not shaking out how I thought it was because I have New Orleans making the 8th seed. So we'll see how that ends up happening. But let's go down to some of the lower price guys. It looks like we still haven't got an update. Holiday's not going to be 27% owned, I would assume. I could be wrong, but I would assume that he's probably not going to be. I'm kind of off him, but we got Murray sitting here at 25%. Murray, obviously a guy that can absolutely crush on these. First game against Sacramento, only played 21 minutes. Last game, 33 and a half minutes, got 44 points. San Antonio is now making a big push for the number 8 seed here or the number 9 seed, either one, trying to make it into the playoffs. So we got Murray sitting here at just 6.2K, I believe. Yeah, 6.2K. Tough matchup going up against Philly. Obviously, they're a tough defensive matchup.
Oh, no.
White has been up and down. He's been playing minutes. We don't really know huh? I hear something? I didn't hear something. But Murray.
You froze for a second, and I thought I was out. I thought I was out of the show.
Well, I can still hear you. Murray sitting there at 6.2K, slightly less ownership than guys up the top. You have any interest in Murray today?
I do, and part of the reason is that San Antonio's got a couple guards that I think are out. Bryn Forbes, I think, and maybe Bellinelli are out. So, and they specifically said San Antonio has been talking about how they want to see the younger guys playing more. And Marcus Aldridge is out, so it kind of takes up the whole usage of the team. So yeah, and I think DeJounte Murray fits into that mold of one of the younger guys. They want to see what they have. I'm seeing a weird Pacers lineup, but I'm not sure it's right. It's out on Twitter, but it looks like both Holidays are starting with Malcolm Brogdon. That means like TJ Warren's out. So I don't know.
I'm wondering if they're just trying to get some more usage off the bench here. I don't know. We'll wait until we get firm confirmation on who's starting. So we'll get to that when we probably get to TJ Warren here. But let's look down at some of these lower-owned guys that I think are very much in play. So Lonzo Ball, we saw what he was doing prior to the lockout or the quarantine, whatever you want to call it. Like, he was playing a lot of minutes, and he was doing very well. First 2 games, really hasn't done anything. 18 points, 24 points. He's sitting there at 8K, only projected at 7% ownership. I think that he's a guy that could potentially be in for more minutes here. They're still trying to figure stuff out. Zion's probably in a little bit better shape right now. They have to start winning, and Lonzo Ball is definitely going to be a guy that's going to be involved. And then Drew Holiday there sitting at 8.7K. Another guy, hasn't looked great, but no one for New Orleans has really looked that good so far. But putting up big numbers prior to quarantine starting, 65 points, 61 points in 2 of the 4 games before he started here. And then Chris Paul, like, he's gotten some rest. His body's probably pretty old, but 40 points in 27 minutes. Last game before that, 37 minutes, 48 points. He's a guy not going to come in at heavy ownership, and he could put up a big game. And then we already talked about a little bit, Ish Smith starting now. going up against Indy. Like in this lower owned range, who are you looking at? Who's your favorite play here to go a little bit off the board for tournaments?
Let's see. I mean, it depends how low we're talking, but Derek White is tempting. There's a lot of the same stuff we talked about with DeJounte Murray, but the same situation where they're missing a couple guards in Bryn Forbes and Marco Bellinelli. It's not a super appealing matchup against Philadelphia. Like Ben Simmons, is a pretty good defensive player. Sometimes gets matched up on the guards, but that could affect his ownership as well. I mean, I like that Memphis New Orleans game. So it's going to be tough for me to move away from the guards in that game. I mean, Drew Holiday, Lonzo Ball, John Morant, and so it doesn't really fit in with the lower price guys. But I don't know. I don't know what lower price guys. Maybe Monte Morris, assuming Jamal Murray's out. But it's 5,000 is kind of a pricey pricey point for him.
Yeah. You're a big tournament guy. You're a fantastic tournament player, one of the best in the industry. Like, what's your favorite way to probably stack up this game? Like New Orleans versus Memphis. I think there's a lot of good plays. There's a lot of guys that I really like here. Like, how are you planning on kind of approaching it? What guys are you going to like? Because obviously people have negative correlations. What's your favorite way to kind of stack it up? Like, what are your big correlation plays that you want in this game?
So I think you could take like Drew Holiday and John Morant, but then you can kind of scroll through the guys on New Orleans because maybe it's Alonzo Ball day, right? So if I go with Ball, I'm probably not going with Drew. And then Drew and Brandon Ingram kind of impact each other. A lot of times one's going to have a high scoring game and the other's not. So you could sell me on John Morant and Brandon Ingram as well.
Yeah, so like if you haven't used RG's lineup HQ tool, it's really simple. You can create player groups. So look at me. I throw in here Drew and I throw in Lonzo. We throw them both in. Set here 0 to 1, or you can just do straight up. I want one of these guys in every single line. I think one of them is going to go off. So you can set that. You can set the group exposure at 100%. You can do whatever you need to kind of make sure that, okay, I'm not just getting stuck with the same guys together in every single lineup here. I want to have one or the other. It really helps with negative correlation plays that you probably want to stay away from. But anyone else that I missed here, Shake Melton, like Napier, any of the guys down here near the bottom, they're just not going to draw a lot of ownership. I know that Denver guard situation a little bit interesting, especially if Jamal Murray doesn't end up playing, just because they don't have a lot of guys. Like I know some people will probably be on Morris a little bit. Like any of these guys down here at the bottom that we didn't talk about that you want to talk about?
So Patty Mills, again, falls into that Spurs guard situation where there's more minutes to go around. But I know Mills was sitting as well. I think Mills sat 1 or 2 games ago. So definitely not safe, but maybe kind of out of 150 type play. Bryant seemed to get some minutes yesterday, and the Wizards are on a back-to-back. And again, so they're kind of a 1 in 150 situation. 15 minutes. I mean, it's close to minimum priced, so you maybe take a flyer if you don't like Ish Smith and Shabazz Napier.
Yeah, I like those calls. Let's move on over to shooting guard here. Look up the top. Justin Holiday projected to be the top owned shooting guard on the entire slate. I don't know if that's been updated yet. I don't know if that's going to be the case. He is still cheap. Brogdon might be limited in minutes. I would assume he's going to be limited in minutes. But I don't know. Our ownership projections will probably be updated fairly soon, I would assume. But lots of things going on in the last 30 minutes where he has to go. SGA, we already talked about. Donovan Mitchell, we already talked about a little bit. A lot of these guys are the same, but top guy that we haven't talked about yet is probably Josh Richardson. Going to be close to around 30 minutes going up against San Antonio. It's a good matchup here. Him, Lonnie Walker, another guy, Troy Brown, who went absolutely off the last game. Doesn't have the best matchup in the world going up against Indy, but not terrible. JJ Reddick is only 3.7K. Like, that seems way too cheap for me. And then another guy in Dylan Brooks, who, let's look at his shooting numbers here. You have any idea how bad they've been since like mid-February?
Yeah, but he's in that game, right? He's in that Memphis New Orleans game, so maybe he's a guy you want to take if you're stacking that game. Because I think that point total is 236, and that's that's like 8 points higher than the next highest game, which is Washington and Indiana. And Washington is terrible defensively. So yeah, I mean, this game could really go back and forth, and especially when you get these guard-oriented teams with a high pace and high point total. I mean, that it could go way over 236 if it goes over 236, especially in kind of the bubble situations. Like sometimes these games are getting kind of a summer league feel, and where they're just running up and down the court. Not as much defense as the regular season.
Yeah, they're out of practice. Some people just really don't care. I mean, with 7 teams in the West know they're going to make it. The East is pretty much set. Like there's not a whole they're just trying to figure stuff out right now. Like they're just trying to make sure they're healthy, figure stuff out. There's no need to play huge amounts of defense because you're already locked into the playoffs and seeding really doesn't matter as much anymore. Like difference between the 4 and 5 seed is generally not drastic, but it's something because of home field advantage. Difference between the 4th and 5th seed is just nothing right now. It is absolutely nothing. But back to Dillon Brooks. I really like him on the slate. Only 2% projected ownership here. You look at his shot total attempts, 20, 16 so far in the bubble. Prior to that, they put him a little bit more on a leash, but 16, 15, 13, 11, 17, 24, 22, 26 in a high-paced game like this. Last time he was in a high-paced game like this was going up against Houston. He had 26 shot attempts. He didn't shoot well at all, and he's still popping up threes constantly. He's a guy that if he actually gets it going, I don't know if he has the yips. I don't know what it is, but he's a guy that I love playing, and he has 50-point upside. He's a guy that's 5.1K, has 50-point upside, and is going to come in at lower ownership. I don't think he's going to do well in this matchup, but it's a sliding scale. Any number of different things can happen. Any number of different shots can go in. And so if he shoots a 50% from the field plus night, he's going for a lot of points because he's going to play all the minutes he possibly can as long as he doesn't foul out. And he's got a fantastic matchup here. So Dillon Brooks is a guy that I really like. What are your thoughts on J.J. Reddick and Troy Brown? I know I mentioned him earlier, but we didn't really fully go through him. Troy Brown, again, not a great matchup here, but had 50 points in the last outings. Could play a whole lot of minutes, even though it's a back-to-back. He's still a young guy trying to have a future here. Lonnie Walker, Josh Richardson, those 4 guys, rank them if you can, or tell me if you're just full on fading any of them.
So I think Troy Brown is probably the guy I'm most interested in. He's really the guy. He's really the guy for the Wizards right now. He's the playmaker. And they're switching up the starting point guard, so he could do it like a court IQ thing and see how does Brown play paired with Ish Smith compared to Shabazz Napier, because now the pairing is going to be Ish and Troy Brown, whereas before Ish was coming off the bench. But I mean that's the second highest scoring game on the night, and I think the Wizards offense is going to be going primarily through Troy Brown. He's a really young guy. I think he's young for his year entering into the NBA. He's a second-year player, but he was really young when he was drafted. So he was their, I think, lottery pick or first-round pick last year. And I think he's a guy with Bradley Beal that the Wizards want to showcase and see what they have in Troy Brown. With the 4 guys that we're talking about, it was Troy Brown, I don't even remember the other. Josh Richardson. Troy Brown's the one that I like more than any of the other 3 guys.
Yeah, running court IQ, it looks like Troy Brown has a decent negative correlation with Ish Smith this season, 794 minutes. He is down, but obviously there's been so many changes throughout the entire Washington lineup here. There's a lot more things that we have to do. So with Ish Smith on, we probably have to throw Bradley Beal off. Guys, if you haven't tried out Court IQ, go try it. It's fantastic. I love it. It's one of the best tools in the entire industry here. Go give it a try. We got a big sample size with Ish Smith on this floor with Troy Brown, but we take off Bradley Beal and it drops down in half. Still, I believe, a bit of a negative correlation here. No. See, difference is it goes from minus 1.5 to plus 1.9. This is per 36-minute basis. So still a little bit of a positive correlation there, but there's so many different things. He has to score now with Bradley Beal off the floor. So Troy Brown right there with you. Anyone else that I'm missing here that we probably should talk about, or you ready to move on to the small forward position?
Just, Jordan Clarkson's kind of been chronically underpriced. because he hasn't been doing well, right? Like he was underpriced coming into the restart, and then he's had bad games since then. So they haven't really. Well, I guess his first game was pretty good, but they didn't really raise the price. And with Bogdanovich out for Utah, I think that he's a guy that's going to be seeing clearly more time and more shots.
Yep, Clarkson. When he's in the game, he likes to shoot. He likes to hog the ball. He's a usage guy. But let's move on here to small forward here. Up at the top, we have Justin Holiday again. I don't know if that's going to be entirely accurate with the Brogdon news. I don't think that he's going to come in at 38%. Like either of the Holidays, like you said, you're not using him now with Brogdon back in. Like, do you
I
think
would
they're still
consider
viable?
so. Yeah, it looks like the starting lineup is Brogdon, both Holidays, Warren, and Miles Turner, and so that because Oladipo's out, so that does keep the Holidays in play because they're both starting. So I like Justin Holiday a little bit more on DraftKings, less on FanDuel. Because on FanDuel, small forward, if you take Justin Holiday as kind of a punt play, then you're giving up either Troy Brown or LeBron or T.J. Warren. Um, but I mean, they're really attractively priced on DraftKings, especially given the fact that they're both starting now, both Aaron Holiday and Justin Holiday.
Yeah, I think for me, like small forward is one of the places where I really have a lot of decisions to make. We got Justin Holiday still projected for high ownership, but he's just so cheap. Like I'm not going to be surprised if he ends up in a decent amount of my lineups here. We got Gallo here at 5.6K going up against Denver. As I've already said, like they have a lot of guys out. It's not quite the same team defensively that we've seen before. Gallo probably going to be in for mid 30 minutes here. So he's a guy that's definitely in play, but I don't know if I want to eat 20% ownership on him. I'd rather go with other guys. We went
I
over
do
Ben.
remember. Sorry,
Sorry.
just to butt in. I know I think Schroeder and Gallinari have a negative correlation. So with Schroeder out, that seems to help Gallinari actually. I remember
Yeah.
that from earlier in the season because everyone always thinks it's like Chris Paul, but like Gallinari gets the biggest boost at one point this season. Like when I ran the Court IQ, Gallinari was getting the biggest boost when Schroeder was out.
Yeah, someone's at my door. That's an annoying doorbell. But yeah, right there with you. Ben Simmons sitting there at 9.1K. We didn't go over him too much at point guard, but he is a guy that can absolutely go off. He's going up against San Antonio. Like they don't have a whole lot on the inside right now. Like they're a little bit of a different team than they have been, but they've always, like for the last few years, they've definitely been a bad team in terms of shooting the ball. So, or in terms of defense, I'm super distracted. Who's at my door? But Ben Simmons sitting at 9.1K. Like, are you going to be using him just because of his huge amount of upside?
I think so, and you can see the difference in ownership percentage there between FanDuel and DraftKings. I feel like he's more attractively priced on FanDuel, which leads to a higher ownership percentage. But in tournaments, he can get that double bonus and the triple double bonus because he's one of those guys that can really get points, assists, and rebounds. And so he's a great tournament play because he's going to be a little bit lower owned because the price isn't as good. But yeah, I mean, if he has a great game, it can be a monster game because of those bonuses.
Sorry, I was muted there. Yeah. But the interesting guys, I think, are
I
going
stunned you in silence.
no, just, I don't know what's going on here. The interesting guys are at the lower price or at the lower ownership points, in my opinion. Like Warren has a massive price up boost. He's sitting there at 7.4K. Like that's a lot more than we're used to paying for him. He obviously went off of 50 real life points the other day going up against Philly. Draws a great matchup versus Washington. There's going to be more usage to go around here. Even with Brogdon back, there's still a lot to go around. Then we've got guys like Kuzma, who's been a fine play. Like I believe you have him tagged there, or Will does. I'm not sure. But a guy that can definitely get you there. DeRozan didn't play great in the last game, but he's a guy that can eat up a ton of the usage without LMA in the offense. Not a great matchup, but still a guy that can go up for 50 plus in any matchup here. And then we got guys like Ingram who haven't played fantastic so far. 2 games, averaging about 25 points per game. Like this is still a spot going up against Memphis. We talked about highest point total on the board. Still a guy that can do stuff. And then Michael Porter Jr. has looked incredible at times. So far, he has not looked that great. Only 18 points in the last matchup there. He still could be in for a decent amount of minutes here going up against OKC just because of all the injuries they have. Like, we're not sure what they're going to do with the rotation. Coming in at 8% ownership just because people assume that he's going to be what he was the other night. Do you have interest in Michael Porter Jr.? Would you rather play Kuzma? Like, who are you looking at this lower ownership range?
I probably lean towards Michael Porter Jr., assuming he's in the starting lineup, but it's true. He looked terrible. I didn't see the game, but just statistically, when he was supposed to be, have a monster game, and he was like 80% owned in some contests, and he just put up a total dud. I think he did have 5 fouls. So I wonder if the foul trouble played into it. But yeah, I mean, he's a guy, he's got so much potential. And he looked so fantastic earlier this season when he got minutes that it's so tempting to go back to him. And he'd probably be my preference, assuming he's in the starting lineup, because I think Will Barton's out, Gary Harris is out. We're probably going to see Jamal Murray out. So there's opportunity there, but I don't know why he didn't do anything with the last game.
Yeah, I don't know why either. It just doesn't make sense to me, but that's basketball. Sometimes, especially young players, like sometimes they can just get in their own head. Like volatility when you're at that age in your game can be pretty drastic for some people who just don't have that ability to just tune other things out. But anything else I missed here, like Tobias Harris, if you want to swap over on FanDuel to him, like he's way cheaper over there, but 8.6K, even up against the Spurs, is not really a price tag where I'm seeing a ton of upside. We got the Spurs guys like Rudy Gay, Johnson, both of them I think are in play. Probably not guys that I'm going to go with because I have a lot more options at small forward. So anyone else I missed here, you ready to move on to power forward?
Maybe Dion Waiters. I know he played a pretty good amount, in both games. So he's looking at about 20 minutes a night. At 3,200, I think that's viable, especially because Lakers game, could always blow out, and you could see LeBron sitting a little bit. And Waiters is one of those guys that has no conscience. So if those minutes creep up a little bit, 24, because he's seeing a little bit extra run at the end of the fourth quarter, then he could be putting up a good score. He gets like 25 DraftKings points.
Yeah, averaging over a point per minute so far during these bubble games, but obviously small sample size. But he's going to shoot. He's absolutely going to shoot. That's just what he does. So I like that call there. Let's move on to power forward here. Clark sitting at 4.2K, 34 minutes in the first game, 24 minutes in the last game. Like, I know he's going to be heavily owned, especially over on FanDuel, but like we just take it, right? In this matchup with the minutes he's getting coming off the bench, like we absolutely take it, right?
Yeah, I mean, and he's one of those guys who can get up and down the floor, which is what we want in one of these games that has a really high point total. Like, we're not looking to target, the big lumbering center on either team. So I don't know if like Derek Favors is the guy that I'm going to be hitting up from that game. It's going to be more like somebody like Brandon Clark that can be running up and down the court and he can be getting some blocks and steals as well, especially on FanDuel where there's 3 points apiece.
Yeah, another guy I want to talk about who's played fairly well. He's shooting the ball a decent amount here, but he is not rebounding. We always know Triple J, tons of talent, can score all the time. But he's only got 6 rebounds so far in 2 games, playing an average of almost 40 minutes per game. Like, I don't know if that's going to fully continue here. Like, Triple J, probably one of the higher owned guys on the entire slate at the forward position. It's a great matchup though, and he has huge upside. Are you using him?
Yeah, and you can see, I mean, he's hanging out by the 3-point line, right? Like 15 attempts. I mean, yeah, that's why he's not getting rebounds. He's very far away from the ball when someone else is shooting. But he's put up a couple monster games. So, and he's getting the usage. I mean, he's taking the shots. So, yeah, he's going to be popular. But if that game really gets up to 240 points or whatever, I think it's 236 and a half. But I mean, if it shoots over by a few points, then yeah, you're going to want some guys from that game.
Yeah, no, I fall in agreement. We both want Memphis and we both want New Orleans players. And let's be honest, I'm pretty much in for almost every single one of them there out on the floor there. There's 8 guys from that game that I'm considering playing and will play. So I'm right there with you. Most of these other guys we've already talked about a little bit. I'm guessing Zion, you have no interest. We don't know how many minutes he's actually going to play.
Yeah, I mean, the minutes could be limited. And then, I mean, he's not necessarily a guy that I'm thinking of as sprinting up and down the court. I mean, maybe, but I guess he did it in some of his limited minutes games earlier this season. But yeah, unless we get word that he's really going to be unleashed, I'm probably going to skip over him.
Yeah, what about any of these other guys like power forward? I'm mostly sticking to the same guys up here at top. But like, go ahead and talk to me like Davis, LeBron. How much you playing either of them in this slate?
I think they're always in play because they're always going to be among the higher raw point total guys, right? So
Yeah,
on a night when we have a ton of value, like it does become easier to fit in guys like Anthony Davis and LeBron. I'll say I'm a little bit more interested in the guy that's sandwiched in between them price wise and Joel Embiid. We'll get there.
yeah,
When we
we'll get to center soon. There's a lot to talk about. There's a reason why I've been rushing through every other position.
Yeah, so but I think I'm going to have some exposure to Anthony Davis and LeBron in tournaments. Just that matchup against Utah, yeah, is not an appealing matchup. Just because Utah tends to be a little bit more stout defensively, especially in the middle with Rudy Gobert, the former defensive player of the year. It's tough because you see at Utah too, and you think that's a good home court advantage for Utah, but that's not really the case right now. That they're in Orlando, so there's no altitude or anything to worry about.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's definitely Denver and Utah are probably hurt biggest by the bubble just because their home court advantage is massive. But you know what? It is what it is. It's the world we live in right now. Let's move on to a very fun position on the night here, center. So Turner's probably going to be the chalk. Turner's probably going to be the chalk, I assume, on both sites here. Looking at it, 36% ownership on DK. FanDuel, why is he up 0%? Am I missing something? That might just be it. He's on that slate, right?
Yeah, he's on the slate. I don't know what.
Yeah,
Really?
that's not right. That's definitely not right here. Brogdon coming back is going to hurt his usage a little bit, so he's not as much of a great play as he was earlier, but still a guy that's probably going to be pretty chalky. And then Thomas Bryant has been he was so good the last game. We always know he's been a decent point per minute guy. We know he's a guy that can get into foul trouble here, but got a big price increase from 4.8K to 6.3K. I think that's going to scare some guys off. And so his ownership's not going to be just through the roof like it has been. Embiid obviously had a massive night going up against the Spurs, going to have Podol defending him. Like, it's a good matchup right now. So he's a guy that I think is absolutely in play. Joker, 9.4K. People are going to go more towards Embiid. I think the ownership differential between those two is going to be more than the 2% we currently have him pegged at. But Joker going up against OKC with a lot of the guys out, his usage is going to go up. He's going to shoot. I know they haven't played great the last two games, but he can absolutely put up a 70.9 at any given time. We got Gobert going up against the Lakers, not the best matchup in the world. We got Podol staying at 5.1K, could be in for 30 minutes if he doesn't get into foul trouble, and they're absolutely going to need his height here. Steven Adams, a guy that's going to come in at very low ownership. Like, let's just break these down one at a time. Miles Turner versus Thomas Bryant. Who you got?
Thomas Bryant. I mean, he's another young guy that the Wizards are going to want to kind of showcase or see what they have in him. They signed him to a big contract, and he was really injured earlier in the season, like before the restart. So I think they want to see him, and they want to see, can they put the offense through Thomas Bryant? Like, they want to see, can they run a Troy Brown and Thomas Bryant offense? So yeah, my two blue dot guys are Bryant and Embiid there. So yeah, I like Bryant, especially as a tournament player over Miles Turner.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on down a little bit. Embiid or Joker?
Embiid. And again, I don't know who's defending Embiid on San Antonio because they don't have Trey Lyles, they don't have LaMarcus Aldridge, so like it's like Jakob Hurdle or something. Like he's not going to defend Joel Embiid. I mean, he's going to be the matchup, but I don't see how he could possibly stop Joel Embiid. So my only concern there would be like fouls and minutes if they decide to be resting Embiid a little bit because he's always a little bit of an injury concern. But yeah, I love Embiid from a raw points total at the center position.
Yeah, yeah. I was hoping ownership would be a little bit different. Like, I was looking forward to playing Joker because I thought he would be way less owned than Embiid. But the looks of it right now, it kind of looks like they're similar. Noto's got Joker tagged as a conviction play, and you have Embiid. So we'll see which one of you are right. Moving on down here, Steven Adams, Valanciunas. Like, are you using either of those guys? I think potentially Adams could be in a real good spot here. I know the Joker likes to be on the outside a little bit, and so that might hurt his rebounding numbers a little bit. But he was putting up some big games prior to quarantine starting. OKC seems to be playing really well right now. J-Val, a guy that if he gets the minutes, he can absolutely just destroy. Had 14 2 games ago, had 27 in the last game. Don't know exactly what's going to happen with this one, especially on the second end with back-to-back, but just can absolutely smash on any slate. Going to come in at low ownership here. Like, are you using Adams or Valanciunas at all, or just staying more at the top?
I'll be using more Adams than Valanciunas, and I think I'll have some Adams. I'm a little bit concerned about that matchup, just for both Jokic and Steven Adams. But yeah, we don't know how it's going to play out. So it could play out that it hurts, like, because Adams is good defensively, and Jokic, yeah, likes to stay a little bit farther outside. So it could hurt Adams in terms of rebounding, and then it could hurt Jokic in terms of facing a good defender. But we don't. That's not necessarily the way it's always going to play out. And then Valanciunas, I'm worried he's not going to see as many minutes just because I think this is going to be more of an up and down game. So he kind of fits into that mold of like with him and Derek Favors as the lumbering centers. I'm not as interested in this kind of game.
Yeah. All right. We got about 15 minutes left. Guys, we'll save the last couple minutes for questions here, so don't get to that yet. But I'm going to quickly look at your conviction plays, see exactly what it is you've talked about this entire show. Like, you like Bryant, you like Embiid, you like Morant, you like Drew, you like Warren. Go down through, know exactly why that makes sense. So let's just go over FanDuel. Again, they already started their main slate, but there are some late swap options. Let's see who your conviction plays are over there. Same exact guys. Like, what are you looking at? You obviously talked about Brogdon being a guy that you should swap off to, just because, like, some people don't remember that they changed it to late swap for this right now. Like, what are some things that you want to keep in mind after this show when you're making adjustments to your lineup?
So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check out any kind of commentary from the Pacers coach in terms of minutes, because Brogdon is coming back. And, was it an abundance of caution thing that he was sitting out earlier and now he's going to be going full throttle, in which case I'm very interested in him against a poor defensive Wizards team? Or is it, we're really concerned about the injury, but we're going to give him a start. He's going to have limited minutes, 20 minutes, in which case I'm not going to be interested in him at all. I think the holidays are actually in play either way. And so it's all three holidays on today's slate, right? You got Drew, Justin, and Aaron Holiday are all in play. I like Justin Holiday a little bit more on DraftKings and FanDuel because I don't want to take both small forward spots. But yeah, I think all of the holidays are in play. So yeah, the first thing I'm going to do is check out what do I think the Pacers minutes are going to be. And I like TJ Warren. He just seems to really go off whenever Oladipo's not in the lineup. He had a monster game last game, and especially if Malcolm Brogdon is limited, then you could see a lot of usage going through TJ Warren.
Yeah, no, I could see that. I'm trying to think of the other things to ask. Like, most of your lineups are already pretty set. That was major news. Like, what about Ish Smith being starting a lineup? I'm trying to remember everything. Like, what about swapping on to, because it started multiple hours ago, swapping on to some more OKC guys? Like, I know the SGA is not going to be that heavily owned, if I remember correctly. Yeah, only coming in at 9% ownership because of his price tag over there on FanDuel. What about swapping onto him because of the Schroeder news, swapping onto Chris Paul because of the Schroeder news? Like, any of those guys there that you're trying to get into your FanDuel lineups because people aren't just going to adjust?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's definitely in play, right? Because Schroeder is out, so I'd definitely consider swapping on to SGA because that's still a pretty good price for him. And he's a guy that gets a bunch of steals, so those are 3 points apiece. And then when he starts scoring a lot of points and getting a lot of steals, and he's getting those breakaways, suddenly he's putting up 5 points in a few seconds. So he's a guy that I'm very interested in seeing if I could swap down to or swap up to on FanDuel. Chris Paul as well, maybe, and Gallinari is going to get a little bit of a boost. Although, I'm definitely going to be looking at my lineups and seeing is Ish Smith suddenly in play because he's moving into the starting lineup. So you'd assume he's going to get more minutes, and he was already doing a lot with the minutes he was getting. So yeah, that's another swap I'd be considering on FanDuel.
All right, guys, go ahead and drop those QQs in. Cantor question mark? Cantor's not on the slate. Yeah, I don't know what they're asking. We already talked about our thoughts on Adams. Go ahead and go over it again. Oh, he meant to say Adams. Like, yeah, you said you're going to be using Adams a little bit on this slate, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think probably more on DraftKings. He's got a pretty good price there. and they're going to need him against Jokic. We talked about the concern with the gameplay is that if Jokic is a little bit more of distributor, sitting a little bit more out by the 3-point line, that could be an issue with Adams' rebounds. But they're probably going to need him to play pretty good minutes in just defending against a true center team in Denver. So yeah, I'm interested in him. And so this isn't going to be a super fast game, right? Oklahoma City and Denver, but that means that the guys I'm interested in, like I am suddenly interested in the slower paced, plotting centers like Steven Adams, just because he could be racking up rebounds if Jokic is playing inside.
Yeah. Someone's asking about Clark. We both like him, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And this whole restart, I think some of the teams are going to be wanting to take a closer look at the young guys who are a little bit limited before the restart, right? So like guys like Roy Hachimura on the Wizards is another guy. We didn't mention, power forward, the team's first round pick, Brandon Clark, team's first round pick. They're both getting over some injuries when they started the season, but now it's almost like they're a season and a half, right? Like they're not quite rookies, they're not quite second year players. And I think Memphis, they want to see what they have in Brandon Clark. Can he play big minutes? I think he's still coming off the bench, but he might be getting good minutes off the bench, and he can put up points in a hurry, especially in a faster paced game.
Yeah, I agree. Someone's asking Millsap chalk. He's not going to be chalky. I
don't think so. I don't think he's going to be chalky. I think like Michael Porter Jr. is probably going to see higher ownership than Millsap. But then again, I think last game, I think Millsap ended up having a much better game because Porter put up such a dud.
Yeah, Holiday versus Reddick.
Holiday. I don't even know what Holiday you're talking about. I like all three Holidays better than JJ Reddick. No offense to meet these friends.
Yeah, so someone asked how we know who has a negative correlation. I know that what do you know what the article's called? That I can't remember off the top of my head. But we do have something that kind of goes over breaks down each slate and goes through like who has negative correlations on what.
So there's Slate Iq, right? Slate Iq looks at like the stacking, like what leverage are you getting off of different stack sizes on, in similar slates to this. And then, court IQ, if I want to see like who plays well when someone's off the court, I look at the court IQ. So both IQ tools I think are actually excellent. Like the court IQ, just in terms of seeing lineup changes, who's going to play well with this guy now suddenly sitting, or this guy starting who plays well when he's in the lineup. And then Slate IQ, it gives you like slate texture and some leverage off different stack sizes.
Yeah. So I just pulled it up. It's on the screen, guys. Like shows what the highest leverage spots are on each different slate for stacking. And it goes by all the slates in the past for a long period of time. Like chalk rates, what they actually hit, so what leverage you can possibly get. So this one's for yesterday. I don't know if the one for today is out yet. I don't know if I just can't see it, but Slate IQ is definitely something worth looking at on a regular basis. It can really give you a nice little edge. Let's see. How much do you like Gobert? I think both of us were kind of like no go on Gobert.
It's tough because there's so many good centers that he kind of slips through the cracks. Honestly, he's just not on my radar, especially on Draftkings. There's so many guys, right? Like Thomas Bryant, Miles Turner, Brandon Clark, Adams, Jokic that we're talking about, Embiid, and then you've got the guys that we kind of think of as power forwards, but, Triple J, Anthony Davis, that I just don't know how I'm going to fit in Rudy Gobert.
Yeah. Favorite cash game forwards? I'd say it's probably Michael Porter Jr. and Clark. I think Clark is more of the cash game guy.
Yeah, and I like Troy Brown. Because he actually has the ball in his hands a lot for a forward. Like they kind of play with him a little bit more as a distributor, the Wizards do, rather than like just a typical small forward role. And then if you need salary savings, I think either of the Holidays. I mean, my reluctance a little bit with the Holidays, even though they're low priced. Neither one of them is like a usage monster, right? Like they're not. It's going to be probably TJ Warren and Malcolm Brogdon, assuming Brogdon's not limited. are going to be the guys that are taking the shots and have the ball in their hands. But like either Holiday, if you need to save price, is a guy I'm comfortable dropping down to, Aaron Holiday or Justin Holiday, because the Wizards are terrible defensively. So yeah, Troy Brown and the Holidays in terms of forwards and cash games.
Yeah, you good with a Joker Embiid lineup?
Yeah, absolutely. And I love going multiple centers on DraftKings where you can do that because it's a lineup configuration people aren't always thinking of.
Yeah. DeJounte Murray and Brogdon thoughts. I think you said you're looking more for news on Brogdon, how many minutes he's going to have. But if he's going to be unleashed, then you absolutely love him. If not, then you're still probably going to play him a bit.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, if he's really limited to like say 20 minutes or something, then I'm not going to be interested in him. Probably I'd have to check out the price, but just because in terms of tournaments, how many points can a guy really put up, and if he's limited to say 20 minutes? But I don't know that, right? Like, it's got to see if the coach is saying anything or if there's anything out there on Twitter in terms of a minutes limitation.
Yeah. Thoughts on Tobias Harris? I think he's in play on FanDuel, but he's too expensive on DK.
Yeah, I think there's like a dramatic price difference. I just don't see the upside being there. I think he's like 8,600 or something on DraftKings.
Troy Brown Jr., good play. You already said yes to that.
Love him, yeah.
Yeah. Clark Embiid or Bryant Ingram, DK cash.
See, Clark Embiid or Bryant Ingram. I'd go Clark Embiid. I think
I don't know if you want to use Ingram for cash. Like, he's definitely more of a tournament play. He hasn't been playing great recently, so like that's for cash. That's really easy. The other one I could easily see for tournaments, but cash, it's absolutely Clark and Ingram. Let's see. Do you like Warren and Brogdon and GPPs together? That's a good question.
I do. I can see that because especially if the Wizards are able to keep it close, then those guys will be more likely to see full minutes. But again, you really got to check and see if there's any kind of word on Brogdon's minutes. That's something you always have to do when a guy misses a game. He's questionable. Okay, he's going to be in the starting lineup. Is he starting expected to play full minutes, or is he starting? We're going to give him a 20-minute tune-up before we head into the playoffs. So we're in this. It should be April right now, right? Like, it should be April in the NBA, which is always crazy with teams, signing guys off the street, which they can no longer do in the Orlando restart. But we're down to the last few games of the season, and teams have even less to play for with home court advantage not being a thing in the playoffs this year. So yeah, you've got to see what the team's motivations are, and you got to see like, our guys going to be playing full minutes.
Someone just said Jamal Murray got ruled out. I don't see anything.
It's possible. I think he was unlikely to play. I mean, I think he was questionable, but it didn't seem. There was a couple quotes out there that like, yeah, without Murray the next few games or something, where it seemed like he was unlikely to play.
Yeah, Triple J and Clark together in the same lineup.
That's a good question. I have. I think they're probably negatively correlated. So I'd have to look it up, but I think they're probably negatively correlated. The issue is that game is so high scoring, but I feel like they sub in for each other.
Yeah, and I think Clark or Triple, either one can play some minutes at the 5.
Yeah, I'd avoid it, but it's not like it's kind of thing where you avoid it, and then suddenly there's like, 250 points scored in the game, and the Clark Triple J lineup rises to the top. So that's a tough one.
Yeah. Last question, then we gotta get out of here. Favorite value pick under 4K? I'm probably going with Reddick.
Let's see. Favorite value play under 4K, DraftKings. Probably Justin Holiday. Because we know he's going to be getting the starts. And even though Brogdon's in, we got to keep remembering that Oladipo's not in. And I think that probably helps Justin Holiday a little bit more. He's a little bit cheaper. And again, the matchup's really good for Indiana.
Yeah. All right, guys. It's been fun. Thanks for tuning in. We got Meansy and Roth coming up next with Crunch Time. If you have premium, you get to watch it. If not, you should probably change that. But it's been fun. John, haven't seen you in a while. Good hanging out.
Good seeing
you, kids. Enjoy your day. See you, kids.